when it comes to building up your Vespiquen line, having multiple Wobbuffet if need be, also the Tropical Beach as well, just to sort of slow things down and evolve if you have to fight through an Archeops. We didn't see any from Brad in the last set, but it is always an option, something that he could drop down.
Yeah, the Maxie's Hidden Ball Trick combo with Archeops and Gallade is really a nice option to have, but it's not necessary for his deck to function. Yveltal EX, Darkrai EX, these are two of the best cards we've ever seen in the Pokemon TCG, and those two cards alone can win you almost any matchup. The Gallade or Archeops, just kind of icing on the cake, and when you could get them out, they just give you extra oomph to disrupt your opponent.
And you mentioned that this was sort of the last matchup that we saw at last regional championships. Darkrai, the Dark deck was able to overcome Vespiquen last time.
Yeah. Now, Dalen does open with Wobbuffet. That's actually a really interesting starting Pokemon for this deck. There are some decks that use a lot of Wobbuffet because they want to shut down opposing Shaman EX, stop their opponents from setting up, and then they have kind of a slower strategy where they sit behind Wobbuffet and build something up. Dalen runs a couple Wobbuffet just to kind of shut down Archeops. So when he starts with it, his deck also relies on Shaman EX quite a bit. It can create an awkward stalemate situation where both sides don't get a whole lot going. But we'll see if Dalen begins with a supporter in his hand. That'll be a big difference.
Yeah, if this Wobbuffet doesn't move in any way, or Dalen doesn't have an option like the Tropical Beach to help him draw more cards, this can be a stranger situation. We just see the Mr. Mime hit the field, bench barrier.
Haven't seen that in a while. Actually, the new one, the Fairy-type Mr. Mime, still has the bench barrier, though.
Yeah, and I believe that same Mr. Mime is also coming back in Generation, so it should be staying for a little while.
Yeah, now, Dalen does have a supporter. It's Colress for 3 cards, though.
Oh,
not exactly the one you want to play on your first turn.
No, not on your first turn in the finals, either.
Draws 3 cards there. I think I saw an AZ and an Audino and not much else. We'll see what Brad can pull off.
Now, Brad can't play any Shaman of his own. However, you can see he's going to be getting the first attacks off. He's got a Sycamore, so he can get a nice big hand. I think the only thing he would have liked to have maybe is a way to discard a Dark Energy. I don't know if he's done that yet. But otherwise, this is certainly a great start.
Definitely. He finds a Battle Compressor. He can go ahead and use that, get some energy in the discard pile. He already does have one. He Ultra Balled that on the first turn. Trainer's Mail going to start things off, though.
Yeah, Versus Seeker can make sure that he can continually draw cards each turn, while Dalen really has nothing at all. And Brad could just run away to a really quick starting win.
Yeah, I saw his hand has at least one Dark Patch and a double colorless energy, so he could power up that Yveltal EX. It looks like 2 Dark Patch, actually.
Oh, wow. And the Compressor's going to make sure that he will have all the Dark he needs. This could be an extremely huge turn, and there's a reason he dropped that Float Stone down in the active position.
Yeah, so he can retreat to a bigger Pokemon to start to put some pressure on. If he can knock out this Wobbuffet this turn, looking at Dalen's hand, we could have a quick first game here in the finals.
Yeah, I mean, what else do you do to retaliate when a Yveltal EX is ready to go?
Yeah, well, ideally you would play a bunch of Battle Compressors, discard a bunch of Pokemon, and respond with Vengeance from Flareon, but I don't know if Dalen's going to be able to do that.
He's going to need a heck of a top deck.
So Brad has the cards to do a couple different things. Even a 4 energy Evil Ball from Yveltal EX only does 100, won't knock out Wobbuffet. Alternatively, he could double Dark Patch and Night Spear, which I think is the much better play. But, well, Mr. Mime is there, but it's just weird. If Dalen would have opted to play the Psychic-type Mr. Mime, Bide Barricade would not shut it off. But since he's playing the Fairy type, the Night Spear can actually hit a benched Pokemon.
I didn't even think about that. Yeah, this is and you could in Expanded go back to the Psychic one.
Yeah,
right? That's an interesting interaction I didn't even think about. So I wonder if Brad catches it with his Night Spear when he comes into play.
Yeah, he's just taking a more patient approach, just using Oblivion Wing, hitting for 30, and then he can Night Spear on the following turn. I like that as well. You could be conservative with your Dark Patch. And Dalen's going to go with the tried and true
Active
Please
Egg.
Take my Execute.
Yeah, doesn't even get that cool water resistance. This is not Seismitoad. This is just praying.
Yeah, so now Brad will be able to get an easy knockout with Oblivion Wing. If he had a Lysander, I'm sure he would target down the Eevee with the double colorless energy and the Silver Bangle. But as it stands right now, Dalen just doesn't have anything. He's throwing up an execute to get knocked out by an Oblivion Wing. He's got no supporters, no Shaman EX to work with. He's got to draw something soon.
It's so crazy. I've been talking in other rounds that we've done even just today. I feel like I've seen more like complete game flubs than I've seen in a long time. Like in these sets of threes, these haven't just been like bad games. They've been the worst case scenario games for some of these players where they just have absolutely nothing. And it just shows consistency is so valuable in this format. Sure, there's a lot of luck as to whether or not you can draw something, but the more alternate types of tech cards that you put into your deck, the less chance you have of just drawing a traditional supporter and getting to start your regular game plan.
Yeah, and we do see decks start to diversify a little bit more and add more tech cards. You know, you see a Hex Maniac or a 0-6 here or there to try to counter certain matchups. And, you know, you draw those at the wrong time instead of an additional draw supporter. And, yeah, it can end up biting you.
Yeah, 0-6 not getting any cards on turn one. It can win games for sure.
Oh, yeah.
But it's just an interesting change I've seen in decks. Versus Seeker is such an incredibly powerful card. It's loaded in almost every type of deck. But because there's so many Versus Seeker, you see less actual draw supporters that players are using.
So, Trainer's Mail, I see a computer search, and that has to be your immediate target. If you're looking for something, computer search definitely will find it for you.
Very arguably the best A-Spec printed of all time. Certainly the most popular and most played. Just gets you whatever you want. And the discarding isn't even so bad for Brad because he also uses multiple different ways to accelerate energy from the discard pile.
Yeah, computer search really is, when you look at it, one of the most boring A-Spec cards there is. All you do is search for a card, but being able to search for any card is extremely powerful. It's just such a flexible card. You're never unhappy to draw computer search because it can always get you something.
Yeah, I always new players try and ask me, like, what kind of stuff should I look for when I'm trying to get into the game? Cards that say search for a card are a big deal.
Yeah.
Oftentimes there's a restriction. It's got to be an energy, it's got to be a Pokemon. Hex Maniac hits the discard pile.
Yep.
But just being able to search for anything is huge.
Yeah, Hex Maniac and the Night Spear going to hit that EV on the bench for 30 damage. That's going to stop any sort of potential Shaman EX or Jirachi EX that Dalen might draw. Even an Unknown using Farewell Letter, it just eliminates a lot of the cards he could draw here.
After all these years, we're still announcing Night Spear as a real legitimate attack.
Hey, it's pretty good. Won Worlds a couple times.
A couple times, and might just win a regional as well for the second time. And Brad has actually committed heavier to the strategy. He's got 2 Darkrai, and they're both in play right now. Not all versions of this deck are running 2.
Yeah, and that seems crazy to me. Darkrai EX, one of the best cards of all time, and people are only playing one of it. It makes sense sometimes to do that, but it's just weird. It's won World Championships. It's won countless regional championships. The Dark Cloak with the Night Spear, it's just one of the best ability attack combos we've ever seen.
And as long as Expanded is keeping Black and White Onward in, Darkrai still has a huge place in these dark decks. Even if it isn't the primary attacker, you can see there's real value in that attack, especially when you're taking really low HP prizes and still able to add some extra damage counters on the bench.
And now this situation, Brad is playing a lot of cards here. Looks like, he's going to go for Seismitoad EX. He has a Lysander in his hand. I was thinking, well, why isn't he just playing Lysander and going after that Flareon, take away the only thing Dalen has? He can still do that. He can just do it with Seismitoad instead and use Quaking Punch.
Oh, wow. And does he have a Muscle Band or anything to pair with that as well, or is he just content with Quaking Punch just because it's so good?
I think he's got Burbank City Gym and a Hypnotoxic Laser, maybe?
That'll do it.
Well, he's got Lysander and Hypnotoxic Laser. Yep, the poison damage will finish off that Flareon. So now Dalen not only has nothing in his hand, he can't play item cards.
So there you can see the value of that Night Spear that he had just the turn earlier made the math add up perfectly for him to get a knockout with Quaking Punch.
And Dalen concedes game number 1. He says, all right, this is not going well. Let's move on to game number 2. So Brad, 1 game away from being our regional champion.
And I can almost see a little bit of relief. That's one of the fastest ways you can get a great start off.
Yep. Every once in a while, you just draw a hand where you just don't have much to play with. And unfortunately for Dalen, that's what happened there. But we do have a best 2 out of 3 series. And Dalen could very easily win the next 2 games and still be regional champion. We've seen it countless times, right? Just because you lose the first game, you're not out of it.
Oh, no, I've seen some incredible multiple game comebacks to make this happen. And this is definitely a competitive matchup. It didn't look like it there. You can sort of see it's almost a downside of starting the Wobbuffet.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's not what you want if you're not retreating into the Wobbuffet just to save yourself from an Archeops.
Yeah, he started with the Wobbuffet and an Ultra Ball. If he had started with any other Pokemon, that Ultra Ball turns into a Shaman EX and he draws a bunch of cards. Since he starts Wobbuffet, he has to Ultra Ball for something else, play a Colress for 3 cards, and he just has nothing the entire game. So his opening Pokemon really dictated the rest of his game.
And that was one thing we saw with Vespiquen players earlier. They're like, well, some players don't like playing the Wobbuffet for that very reason.
It's certainly an awkward card to include in the deck, and that's just really speaks to the power of Archeops and that rise in popularity. You have to account for it. You can't just not deal with Archeops because it shuts down your whole deck if you don't.
Yeah, it's really frustrating to lose just a single card, and oh, man.
The execute start for Dalen. Now, fortunately, he is going first, so he won't lose to any quick Hypnotoxic Laser, Verbank City Gym combos. But let's hope for his sake that he has more than just that execute to work with.
Yeah, I mean, he does have a battle compressor.
That'd be a bad way to lose the regional championships.
That would be a bad egg. So we have 3 unknown discarded into the discard pile. It's just building up his revenge attacks. It's a start. You have to imagine he has something to draw, something to... Okay, and then hits something.
I was going to say, oh no, is that all he has?
When he willingly attached the fire to the execute so quickly, it's like, oh no, is this it? Is this going to be a non-regional finals? Sometimes it can play out like this, but I would love to see one competitive back and forth game.
Oh yeah, we got this far. Let's end it with a bang.
This is a fun matchup normally. I like watching it develop and seeing huge knockouts on each side. Hopefully we can at least see something from Dalen.
At least a Pokemon.
6 cards to do it.
All right, so Dalen, he's got all sorts of things he can draw. Tons of basic Pokemon, Ultra Ball, things he can see here. And he did find a Mr. Mime and a Shaman EX. But he's going to need to find a Combi or an Eevee. Otherwise, he's going to be pretty far behind.
Man, for a deck that normally relies on such incredible speed, that is an unfortunate way to start. Does he opt to just not even play the Shaman?
Yeah, he could have used setup for 2 cards. Instead, just opts not to put it down. This
could get tricky because Brad's got a Hex Maniac that he can drop. Now, all of a sudden, holding the Shaman doesn't seem so good.
Yeah, but at the same time, Brad didn't really do much. Darkrai takes 2 Darkness Energy and a Colorless to attack. And
oh, there was a Juniper as well. Was that his top deck?
He might have just had it. He just already played a supporter. But Darkrai really can't put any pressure on right now. It takes 3 energy to attack, 2 of them being Darkness. So Dalen's not in any real trouble.
Yeah, I mean, I guess he gets slowed slightly if he needs to use a Shaman here, but at least an Eevee down and a Life Dew means he can at least start building some form of attacker here.
So he can attach the Fire Energy to Eevee, and he's opting not to use Energy Evolution. He already has Flareon in his hand, so he could have searched for a Flareon and evolved right to Eevee, but opts not to.
And so we see Versus Seeker, just making sure he's got a Juniper ready to go next turn.
Yeah, so
another slower start for this deck, but it's better than the last one.
Yeah, now Brad actually didn't have anything on his first turn. That's why he played Hex Maniac. He had nothing, so a top deck Trainer's Mail here allows him to find Ultra Ball, find Shaman EX, and maybe get this strategy going. I see his hand was all cards he really couldn't play, a couple Dark Patch, Versus Seeker. So this Ultra Ball was a welcome sight. Turns into Shaman EX, and he'll draw some more cards.
Yeah, he'll at least be able to find a couple. I don't know if he has anything else that he can actively burn out of his hand, but I'm sure he would love to see a non-Hex Maniac supporter.
Right, and at this point, he's going to search through his deck and see, do I have Archeops in there? Do I have Maxie's Hidden Ball Trick available? Because having that information can influence the way you play the game in future turns. You may want to dig for that Maxie's Hidden Ball Trick and get the Archeops out, because if he can get it out, Dalen doesn't have Wobbuffet out right now, and he wouldn't be able to evolve into Flareon.
It becomes a much uglier scenario. We do see the Shaman there. I was wondering if he had cards to burn. Puts the Float Stone on Darkrai. Looks useless right now, but at least allowed him to draw an extra card.
Right. So we'll see what else Brad can do. I don't believe he's played a supporter yet, so still a long way to go before his turn is over. And I think he has Professor Sycamore. Going to go ahead and just play Hypnotoxic Laser since he'll discard his hand anyway. And I think he probably wants to find a battle compressor and maybe an energy and go for an Oblivion Wing this turn.
Yeah, the Oblivion Wing's a great choice. You can pick up this knockout, apply some pressure. That's going to force Dalen to really start evolving and dealing damage immediately. And we also see useless heads on the Hypnotoxic Laser.
Hey, you never know. That could come up big.
And I don't know. He hasn't attached an energy yet. I'm curious if he has one. I see a Dark Patch.
Oh, he does have Burbank City Gym, so no matter what, he'll be able to get the knockout on Execute with the 2 more damage counters from Burbank City Gym between turns. But yeah, missed energy drop is a pretty big missed opportunity. He's already discarded a few Dark Patch, and Dark Patch is the way your 3 energy attackers like Darkrai or 2 energy attackers like Yveltal EX can keep up against the constant pressure from Vespiquen and Flareon. So the fact that he's had to discard Dark Patches and now misses an energy drop is a really big deal.
Yeah, at the end of that, he actually wasn't able to accelerate anything. If Dalen can get a Flareon and really discard a lot of things, play a Shaman, draw a lot, and enter your normal strategy, this could get big. You've got a Juniper. There's one more Pokemon in the discard pile.
Yeah, I don't think he's seen any Battle Compressor yet. Plays 4 of them. Those are key for getting enough Pokemon in the discard pile. Already played 2 of his 3 Fire Energies, so he'll probably have to burn a double colorless energy on the active Flareon if he wants to attack this turn. But we see the propagation, so an Ultra Ball should be coming.
Yeah, and here goes Ultra Ball. Discarding, you can find a Shaman, dig even deeper. I think maybe, was this the game where he discarded 3 Unknown, or was that the first one?
Yeah, that was this game.
Okay, so he has...
he did play 1 Battle Compressor.
He has a few Pokemon in. He's going to need a big handful more to be able to knock out this Yveltal in one hit. But if you can make it happen, it's definitely going to change the complexion of this game quite a bit.
Yeah, and the Life Dew on the Flareon is a big deal as well. It looks like Dalen is trying his best not to put down any EXs here, not to put down any Shaman EX. And if that's the case, Brad's going to have to knock out this Flareon with the Life Dew and then 5 more Pokemon afterwards. And that's just so much to have to fight through.
Yeah, this doesn't recycle the Life Dew endlessly like we've seen with Sableye shenanigans, but it's still just preventing 1 prize card when you're only giving 1 at a time is a really big deal.
And now Brad does find the Battle Compressor turn too late. He can discard a couple energy. He does have a Dark Patch in hand. He can start to accelerate his energy a little bit here. And I guess he could do an Oblivion Wing for 50. It's not extremely relevant, but maybe if he follows it up with a Hypnotoxic Laser, he could put some pressure on that Flareon.
Yeah, then it's like, well, you can take a knockout with Flareon, but you're also going to get knocked out coming back into my turn.
Yeah. There we see the Dark Patch going to go on the Darkrai EX with the energy on it already. And, yeah, there is Hypnotoxic Laser, so that's going to put on a little pressure. Dalen does play that 1 Odd No. It can use Busybody to cure a special condition and heal 10 damage, so that might be coming up in the next turn if this Flareon doesn't get knocked out.
Yeah, I haven't seen a Busybody in a while. Even a lot of the Flareon Vespiquen decks I've seen have just opted to not play it. They don't like starting with it. But I like it as an inclusion.
Definitely. So, see another Ultra Ball from Brad. He might be going for the Hidden Bolt Trick this turn. Oh, yep.
Yep, Jirachi.
And this is another big moment in this game. Brad was able to play his hand down to no cards except for that Maxie's Hidden Bolt Trick. Archeops will come into play and activate Ancient Power, so Dalen can't evolve any of his Pokemon anymore. He's going to need to find that Wobbuffet.
And that is really difficult to do. He's going to have to promote something like Mr. Mime as attack fodder. I guess the Flareon will probably survive.
Yeah.
So I guess Flareon can retreat, but that's your only attacker right now, and you can't evolve until you shut off abilities.
Yeah, so now all of a sudden, Brad kind of taking control of this match, and Dalen's going to have to find some way to respond. We do see another Battle Compressor. Might see some energy go into the discard pile so he can use Oblivion Wing and fuel some energy attachments while also dealing some damage that's crucial to that Flareon.
And Brad's board is really starting to look pretty solid now. His deck is very thin. He's getting a lot of cards that he doesn't need out of the way. He got the Archeops, I think, the first time out of the many times we've watched Brad play. And this time it is very relevant because he's playing against a deck that evolves a lot.
Yeah, so far everything's looking good for Brad. Goes for the Trainer's Mail. Wonder what he's looking for here. Doesn't matter what he's looking for. He found an Ultra Ball.
Yeah, no other options there, but still plenty of energy left in the deck. Lots of ways for him to build big attackers that can knock out these small 90, 100 hit point Pokemon.
Oh, and he doesn't find a Darkness Energy, so he won't be able to attack this turn. He can't retreat that active Yveltal, so looks like that Flareon's going to be safe for the time being.
I guess that is one thing to be unhappy to see. I guess he still doesn't have many Darkness Energy that he can accelerate yet. And Dalen, question is, how do you find a way to start evolving additional Pokemon around this Archeops?
Yeah, you're going to need to find Wobbuffet. He does play 2 copies of that Wobbuffet and also Hex Maniac, so he has more than one way to shut off Archeops and get more evolutions into play. And, if he can get a constant string of Vespiquen and Flareon going, I do think he can win this game pretty easily. There are a lot of EXs on Brad's board to take advantage of. There we do find Wobbuffet, and also that Flareon has Life Dew, so it's going to be tough for Brad to take all of his prizes before Dalen can, if Dalen can manage to get a bunch of Flareon and Vespiquen up and running.
And as Brad is able to run through some of Dalen's Pokemon, he's going to slowly fill up, Brad's going to slowly fill up Dalen's discard pile and make his revenge attacks a lot stronger, perhaps enabling a one-hit knockout on something like that one Darkrai EX that we see in the future.
Now, Dalen does have the Audino in his hand. He could use Busybody and heal off the poison along with 1 damage counter from that Flareon. The problem is it won't stop Darkrai EX from using Night Spear and knocking him out. So figures, maybe I'll save this for another time if I stay asleep on a Hypnotoxic Laser or something. He doesn't need the damage or the Pokemon in the discard pile to do the extra damage just yet, so he'll hold on to it.
So Dalen is able to grab himself his first prize card. He is going to have to eventually either promote Wobbuffet and evolve or Hex Maniac and evolve, but I actually haven't seen any Combee hit the bench.
Yeah, that's weird.
Already in these games. He's going to want as many basic Pokemon as he can get so that he can use these short turns where he wants to evolve and get into his regular game plan.
Yeah, ideally you have a turn where your active Pokemon gets knocked out, you send out Wobbuffet, you shut off Ancient Power, evolve all your Pokemon, and then you put a Float Stone on Wobbuffet and retreat. With only 1 basic ready to evolve, it's not going to be as effective as it could be.
So Brad, we saw he just wants to refresh his hand, find a few more resources, plays the N. Both players doing Shuffle 5. Brad, I don't think has attached for the turn, so I'm sure he would love another energy.
Yeah, but once again, we're seeing Darkrai EX as the main attacker for Brad. Who would have thought? In the year 2016, we're still announcing the Night Spear attack, but it's still here.
It's still relevant, especially like here. Flareon only has 100 hit points. Vespiquen has the perfect 90. So it doesn't matter how heavy you hit when it's 100 damage or less.
Yeah,
so
and Darkrai is particularly strong against regular Pokemon. Things like Flareon and Vespiquen, things that it can knock out in 1 hit and also set up damage later with Night Spear on the bench, where you can get multiple prizes in 1 attack at some point. Darkrai EX got a little less powerful as other EXs got stronger. So as more and more cards came out, like Yveltal EX, for example, in a head-to-head matchup, Yveltal EX's Evil Ball is going to beat Night Spear. But against lower HP Pokemon, doing 200 damage with an Evil Ball isn't any better than doing a Night Spear, which also knocks it out. In fact, it's worse because you're not getting the bench damage.
And so there, he doesn't get any bench damage because of the Mr. Mime, but he does get the knockout. No prize card because of Life Dew. And now Dalen, with Wobbuffet up, is going to be shutting off abilities, and that includes Archeops. So he can evolve this turn if he does have a Flareon.
And now there are a few other advantages to Darkrai over Yveltal EX. The first one is it has 10 extra HP. It has 180 compared to the 170. It might not seem like a very big deal, but it is. You need 1 more Pokemon in the discard pile to knock it out with things like Vengeance and Be Revenge. So that extra HP is a big deal. Another thing is a lot of these Vespiquen decks play 1 Jolteon. And Jolteon allows your Stage 1 Pokemon to also be Lightning Pokemon, so you can hit Yveltal EX for weakness and knock it out much easier. So Darkrai EX, very much so the preferred attacker in this matchup.
Yeah, we saw Dalen. I think he just opted to discard the Jolteon. It can be very helpful in this matchup, but I think players like Brad have started adjusting to it. If you can opt to get knockouts without having to use Eviltal EX, it can really help.
Hold on. Use propagation, but he can't do that. Okay.
Oh, yeah. Wobbuffet, it doesn't just prevent abilities of Pokemon in play. It says specifically if they're in the hand, if they're in the discard pile, no go.
Yeah, and I have to wonder what Dalen's going to Ultra Ball for. His hand is actually abysmal. He has Eevee and Flareon and a double colorless energy. With that Wobbuffet in the active spot, he can't Ultra Ball for a Jirachi EX or a Shaman EX and use it. Bide Barricade shuts them off. So his hand is effectively unplayable right now. Yeah. And the way he's played this turn out, I mean, he could Ultra Ball, discard Eevee and Flareon, put the double colorless on Wobbuffet, and retreat, and then set up for 6. But then he leaves himself in a terrible position. So committing to this Ultra Ball is actually backfiring really badly.
Yeah, I mean, what do you even choose to discard here? Those are all cards that you would like to have and use.
Yep. And again, Archeops just throwing a wrench in the plan, even just a little bit, forcing Dalen to promote Wobbuffet. It stops him from using Shaman EX. You see just how much Archeops makes the difference in these matchups against decks that need evolved Pokemon.
And we see Dalen having to bail on this line. Probably, I wonder if he's going to do the play that you mentioned, just retreating and using Shaman and hoping that it pays off.
Yeah, it looks like that's what he has to do. It's not very good, but that's kind of what he's backed himself into.
And once he does that, he can no longer evolve because Archeops will be back and active.
Yeah, now another question is, what does he retreat to? Does he retreat to Mr. Mime? Well, then he can't evolve into Flareon. That gives Brad a chance to maybe Lysander out Eevee and knock it out. If he retreats to Eevee, he could possibly draw his Hex Maniac and then evolve into Flareon and try to go for vengeance. But he's just going to settle on Mr. Mime, and this is not a very good spot for Dalen at this point, having discarded a couple double colorless energy already.
Yeah, not at all. I mean, eventually maybe he can find his way into Blacksmith, but you need to have Flareon first. He does get a Combee down, but I'm sure that's the type of Pokemon he would have liked to have in his first couple of turns instead of a bunch of support Pokemon.
Yeah, at this point, I don't see any double colorless left in his deck. There's one in his hand. So he'll have one double colorless energy, but that's all he can use to power up Vespiquen. And that's the only energy left in his deck. So the only way he can power up attackers at this point is by getting a Flareon out and using Blacksmith. And if he's using Blacksmith, he can't play a Lysander. And he's also discarded a lot of those Eevee pieces already. An Eevee here, a Flareon there. And I just don't know how Dalen can string together the attackers to take his last 5 prizes.
What an odd situation. You need cards like Wobbuffet if you want to fight your way around Archeops, but when you run cards like Wobbuffet, you can shut off some of your other strategies. And we've seen Wobbuffet hasn't really pulled its weight very well in today's matchup.
Yeah, seems like it. The downside of shutting off your own abilities has really shined through here.
And you really can't see, even if you are playing counter cards, the Archeops is still incredible if you're able to drop it down.
Oh, there's the Versus Seeker for Lysander. This is an ugly situation for Dalen. Loses one of those precious double colorless energy. He's left with just one energy in his entire deck, that one last double colorless energy. He's going to need a turn where, he evolves to Vespiquen, drops that double colorless energy, and maybe plays an N and tries to disrupt Brad.
Yeah, and oh man, even committing the double colorless energy to this Combee, if Brad's able to pull it up and knock it out, Dalen's going to be left with nothing.
Pretty much, and he's actually going to go for the Professor Juniper to draw a fresh 7 instead of going for the 5 cards.
So with no real disruption, and he's forced to do that to draw, Brad is just one Lysander away from putting Dalen in a world of hurt.
Yeah, and Dalen doesn't even have many cards left in his deck. He could run out of cards before he takes all his prizes.
And we do see evolution to Vespiquen. Floatstone on the Wobbuffet.
Now this is what Dalen needs to do to have a chance in this game. There are certainly enough Pokemon in the discard pile at this point to be revenge for a one-hit knockout. Now Brad has just that double colorless on the Darkrai. Nothing else in play in terms of energy. And his hand isn't really that great. So he'll need to find like a Floatstone and then a Dark Patch and an energy. And if I'm not mistaken, he's already burned through a couple Dark Patch early on in the game. So pulling off an attack here might be really difficult for him.
Yeah, I just realized he has no easy out, nothing that he can really easily retreat. It's possible that even though this is Dalen's last energy and his last Pokemon outside of maybe later getting a Flareon and Blacksmith, this one Vespiquen might be able to get more than one attack, and that's certainly the most value you want in this kind of matchup.
So it looks like Brad's going to promote Shaman EX here. I mean, he does have Versus Seeker. He could find a Professor Sycamore, draw some cards, maybe a Colress if that's in there. Otherwise, yeah, he's going to have to draw into one of those dark patches if he has one left. Float Stone maybe to get a free retreat. Otherwise, I'm not sure what he attacks with this turn. And if he doesn't attack, that Vespiquen's going to be there. It's going to attack again. It's going to take a couple more prizes, and perhaps Dalen can squeak out a game here.
Yeah, and another odd thing, Brad could attach from hand to Darkrai, but if it's not attacking, maybe Dalen then has a Lysander of his own, and he can pull it up and set Brad back to 0.
Oh, Computer Search. That's a really big card to draw here. He'll be able to search for whatever he needs, take a look through his deck. And do we see any Dark Patch in there?
I don't. I see double colorless if he wants to try the Sky Return route, but it's a bit slower and a bit riskier.
Yeah.
I think he's out of Dark Patch. I think that's probably all he's got.
At this point, though, I wonder if Brad knows that that double colorless is the last energy for Dalen. If he knows that, then a Muscle Banded Sky Return actually isn't that bad. It can set up for a 2-hit knockout. All he has to do is knock it out and he wins, right? So this might be a pretty solid play. Also sends Shaman EX back into his hand so he can Sky Return, or he can set up on the following turn to draw more cards.
And it looks like that might be all we get. Is there no Muscle Band that he can connect with? Just a regular 30 damage Sky Return?
Oh, yeah, that's something else as well. Even a Hypnotoxic Laser would be good here.
Yeah.
In fact, that would put on a ton of pressure.
With Verbank City Gym still in play?
Yeah.
And does Dalen run many? I think he has just, the one Tropical Beach?
Yep.
We haven't seen that yet either.
You can see his list is very much similar to Kevin Baxter's, who took second place last week. But instead of going with the Gallade and Maxie's Hidden Ball Trick route, he's decided to go with Hex Maniac and Silver Bangle instead. But otherwise, a lot of very similar choices in his deck list, including the Tropical Beach and the Wobbuffet.
So we see Versus Seeker for the end. Brad's going to play it, hoping, Dalen does have some way to easily knock out one of my EX Pokemon, maybe something like the Lysander. Maybe this will bring him down. And I wonder if Brad has counted the energy on Dalen's side yet or not.
Yeah, and I'm actually wondering if Dalen has an Eevee and a Flareon left. If that's the case, if he doesn't have Eevee and Flareon left in his deck and Blacksmith, it's over when this Vespiquen goes down. All 4 of his double colorless are gone. All of his fire energy are gone. So he needs an Eevee, a Flareon, and a Blacksmith to try to close out this game.
Now, does he definitively have 3 other doubles in the discard pile, or was one of them prized?
Pretty sure they're all discarded. The first Flareon used a double colorless, and then he had to discard one at some point, and then he retreated one with Wobbuffet, and the 4th one's here.
That'll do it.
Yeah.
Wow. So he really doesn't have any other immediate outs. It's just, can this Vespiquen survive?
So there we go. Sky Return for 30. No boost from a Muscle Band or Hypnotoxic Laser. And what can Dalen do here?
I almost wonder at this point if knocking out the Evil Tall is stronger, only because I know there's no Dark Patch that'll power up Darkrai immediately. A single energy and a Hypnotoxic Laser would knock out Vespiquen.
That's true.
With Oblivion Wing. And I don't know how strong Dalen's hand was off of the end. Maybe that is the only option that he can take.
I see a Professor Juniper in his hand. Don't want to play that. You'll run out of cards and lose.
Yeah, both these players have gone pretty far in.
He does have Versus Seeker, though, so what's he going to go for? He could find a Lysander and try to bring out that Darkrai EX and try to put this game on a 1-turn clock for Brad.
Yeah, I'm really curious. I feel like that's what I want to do. Also,
goes for a
Hex
Maniac.
Maniac.
So he's going to shut off abilities, and this could prevent some kind of big Shaman play for Brad, I suppose. Brad's going to take a look through, see how many Versus Seeker that Dalen has used, how many Lysander, if any, he's used. So the Hex Maniac might shut some things down. And he does know that Brad used Sky Return after that end. So
Well, we do see the hypnotoxic laser here.
Uh-oh.
So there's going to be a lot of pressure on Vespiquen, and it definitely would have been knocked out.
Well, it's going to be knocked out. It'll be Hypnotoxic Laser and then Sky Return from Shaman at the very least.
Oh, yes, that'll do it. And I don't think Dalen can he claim a prize in any way past this?
I don't know. He's got to find an EV and a Flareon if there's any left.
Oh, man. So here we go. There's the poison. He has a few prize cards to burn here. Brad's a bit slower on the trade, but yeah, Wobbuffet up. And you just have to hope you can find Eevee or Flareon if there are any left at all. His deck is so thin.
Yeah, it's that. And does he even have Blacksmith or Versus Seeker left? Or is he just completely exhausted of resources?
Yeah, with Vespiquen gone, he put up a great fight. Just 2 prize cards left.
I don't see an Eevee any
That's
concedes.
it?
That's it. Brad Curcio is your regional champion. Oh, the Eevee was in his prizes. Dalen just
wow.
needed that Eevee. He did have the Blacksmith in his deck. So that last prized Eevee is the difference between going to a game 3 and Brad winning. But congratulations to Brad, your regional champion, defeating almost 500 players to get to this point.
What a humongous model of consistency. He's been
Yep.
playing for so long and succeeding for so long.